Efforts to shrink the National Weather Service have left hundreds of meteorologists and other workers potentially out of jobs, with a court battle pending that could affect weather forecasts across the country. And weather experts say those cuts may be felt disproportionately in the country's largest state, Alaska. Alaska Public Media's Eric Stone reports.
The federal government would not confirm how many probationary workers were fired last month at the National Weather Service, but according to the union that represents the agency's workers, it's about 100. Many, if not all, may wind up getting their jobs back, thanks to an ongoing legal challenge. But even more aren't coming back, according to the union. They say almost 200 employees, including senior staff with decades of experience, took the so-called fork-in-the-road offer and resigned.
When you start losing 275 employees, that's significant, being able to carry out our mission.
Brandon Dunstan is the executive vice president for the National Weather Service Employees Organization. He says at least 24 meteorologists and support staff were cut in Alaska, about 10% of the statewide total. And Alaska stands to be disproportionately affected by these cuts, in part because it's so much bigger than other states and already had a lower density of forecasters and weather stations. Take the forecast office in Fairbanks, which covers an area bigger than the entire state of Texas.
In the Midwest, that same land area would have about 20 forecast offices in it.
That's Rick Toman. He's a climatologist at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, but he worked for the National Weather Service for more than 30 years. The cuts have already had tangible impacts, and that's according to the National Weather Service, like stopping some weather balloon launches, which play a big role in generating the forecast. Toman says that's on top of the fact that it's already harder to forecast in the Arctic than at lower latitudes.
It's really one of these compounding factors. Everything is pointing in the same direction, making the job more difficult in Alaska with less people to do it.
This is a state known for deadly weather, and a state with a lot of industries that rely on accurate weather reports: aviation, oil, tourism, fishing. Ed Page founded the maritime safety agency called the Marine Exchange of Alaska. They're basically air traffic control for boats.
We could talk all day long about life jackets and immersion suits and life rafts, all of them important. But you don't need any of that. If it's really stormy weather, you don't go.
Reliable weather forecasts and observations are also critical to Alaska Native people's traditional subsistence hunting and fishing. Democratic State House Representative Robin Nayak Burke represents numerous Native communities in the Arctic.
I think it's dangerous because a lot of those communities rely heavily on subsistence, and there are a ton of small planes flying in each of those regions every day.
Alaska has many rural villages where people can only access the outside world by boat or plane. And planes crash here on a fairly regular basis. Weather is often a factor. Adam White with the Alaska Airmen's Association says it's a matter of public safety.
Not to get too dramatic, but it literally is a life safety issue for us to have accurate, current weather information and weather data.
He says he understands the perspective of people who want to cut waste on the federal government, but he doesn't think this is the way to do it. For NPR News, I'm Eric Stone in Juneau.
In the first 2 months of his second term in office, President Trump has begun major overhauls of national policy on multiple fronts. Among the most visible and contentious efforts is the push to reshape the federal workforce, both in its size and its management. For a look at how this population of workers came to look the way it does now, we turn to the man we call Professor Ron. That's NPR's senior contributor, Ron Elving.
Trump spent 14 years as star of a reality TV show called The Apprentice, uttering his signature line,
"You're fired."
So why, Trump seems to ask, can't government work like that? Why shouldn't the president or a designee such as Elon Musk hire and fire people as they see fit? The answer lies way back in American history, back to a practice now roughly 2 centuries old. In that era, there was pressure on each new president to hire friends and family, campaign donors, and loyal backers of the president's party in each state. Some new hires might be qualified for their new jobs, but many were not. Here's how NPR's iconic senior news analyst Daniel Schorr described it in 2005.
A long time ago, in the era of Andrew Jackson, it was called the spoils system. To the leader belonged the spoils. It was also called patronage.
Andrew Jackson saw no reason not to distribute the goodies of government to his friends and those willing to be friendly. Soon, government jobs came to be regarded as rewards for political connections, and those who got these jobs often had to make donations to the party as payback, prompting widespread calls for reform as early as the 1850s. In 1876, no less a figure than Mark Twain actively campaigned against patronage, complaining, quote, "We serenely fill great numbers of our minor public offices with ignoramuses," unquote. But reform had to wait until tragedies struck.
1881. To the American people.
Those are the words of Charles Guiteau, traumatized on PBS's The American Experience.
The president's tragic death was a sad necessity.
That president was the newly inaugurated James Garfield, whom Guiteau shot the day that letter was penned. Garfield lingered more than 2 months before dying. The shooter's motive? He had not been given the job he wanted in the new administration. The assassination supercharged the arguments of reformers like Ohio Senator George Pendleton. Dan Shore.
Starting in 1883, there came a series of reforms, culminating in the Pendleton Act, which established civil service and a merit system for persons competing for jobs.
The Pendleton Act banned the hiring of relatives, donors, and other supporters for a certain class of federal jobs that required special knowledge or skills. It also banned the firing of employees for political reasons. At first, the act covered just 10% of federal jobs, but it expanded to encompass the vast majority.
Fast forward to 1978, where we had another big reform, the Civil Service Reform Act.
Elizabeth Linos is the Emma Bloomberg Associate Professor of Political Policy and Management at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. She directs research on how to recruit, retrain, and support the government workforce. In February, Linos talked on Fresh Air about what the Civil Service Reform Act accomplished.
So it created OPM, which is the Office of Personnel Management. It created the Merit Systems Protection Board, MSPB. And both of these agencies were really designed to bring performance and accountability into the civil service.
We should note that even as civil service grew in importance, there remained a list of federal policy-making positions that were considered exempt. They remain the president's to fill as he sees fit. That category begins with the president's own cabinet and extends outward through the federal bureaucracy, where several thousand so-called politicals serve at the pleasure of the president. But they remain a tiny fraction of the civil payroll, which is about 3 million. The vast majority of federal workers serve departments or agencies created and funded by Congress, and the people who choose to work and are chosen to work for those agencies are chosen through the civil service process. They do not work directly for the president, and they have had a measure of job security through the civil service laws that began with the Pendleton Act. Now, in the last 2 months, Trump has lent his authority to Elon Musk's mass firings of federal workers and closing down of whole programs and offices. One group that's been targeted is the new or newly promoted employees called probationary hires. As of March 2024, the government counted 220,000 federal employees who had served less than 1 year, and another 288,000 who had between 1 and 2 years of service. Jennifer Palka is a senior fellow at the Niskanen Center, a libertarian-leaning think tank, and she's worked on civil service reform in the Obama and Trump administrations. She's been a critic of the current system, especially the length of time it takes to fill positions.
It's very, very widely accepted that this does not work well. I should say there's so many wonderful civil servants that it is not that we don't get good people. It's that the process makes it very hard to get good people and puts a huge burden on those who are trying to do the hiring.
Palka is hopeful that something good can come from the current disruptions, as she recently explained on NPR's The Indicator from Planet Money.
If we can get rid of some of the very overly strict policies that try to not use any judgment at all in the hiring and diminish some of the possible downsides, we could really end up, frankly, with a better hiring system at the end of these 4 years.
So there could be improvement, Palka says. But there could also be regression. One of Trump's recent orders includes a command to recruit workers who are, quote, passionate about the ideals of our American republic.
I think that language is all messaging and all signaling. We don't want to go back to a spoils system. And I think there's fear right now that would be returning to what we had before, which is essentially graft.
Government reform has often included steps forward and steps back. Senator Pendleton of Ohio himself learned this in the aftermath of his breakthrough achievement in the 1880s. The year after the Pendleton Act was signed into law, politicians and party officials back in his home state, some of whom had thrived under the spoils system, blocked Pendleton's bid for re-election. He never held elected office again. For NPR News, I'm Ron Elving.
The last thing I wanted to say is it's kind of ridiculous, the mask, wearing mask. It makes it to where I don't really want to say hi to people when they're wearing masks. And, you know, I go about my day, I say hi to people every now and then, or a lot sometimes. But I don't want to talk to anybody with a mask. And it makes it to where I don't know, you know, if people are going to do a crime. I don't think, you know, but it's now everybody has a mask on. But it's really ridiculous. And they weren't wearing a mask when everybody can see the chemtrails, but nobody can see this COVID-19. But, you know, whatever. Okay, thank you.
And now we continue our look at the 5th anniversary of the COVID-19 pandemic. We've spoken with a handful of the countless people whose lives were turned upside down by the virus. We hear now from a nurse who worked on the front lines in New York.
My name is Sandra Lindsay, and I was the first person in the United States to receive the COVID-19 vaccine outside of a clinical trial. I can hardly believe it's 5 years, as it feels like just yesterday. It was such a tough time on many levels, personally and professionally. I was heartbroken to see the amount of patients that were dying despite, you know, doing our very best. I couldn't sleep. I felt like I was always thinking about work. I felt like I was carrying the responsibility of an entire critical care division team on my shoulders. On one of my days, rushing out of the house to go to work, I had a sculpture of a face, and I slammed the door. The piece fell to the floor and broke. All I had the energy to do was pick up the pieces, and I put them in a bag, and I said, someday I will put this back together. Personally, my grandson was born prematurely, and so he was in an intensive care unit fighting for his life. And here I was trying to save lives. Nobody knew my struggles because I had to be focused and I had to be there for my team. And I felt like I couldn't share that information because people had other issues that needed my attention. I was really, really devastated to see the number of people that looked like me that were disproportionately being impacted by the virus. I am definitely a different person today than I was back in 2020. People still recognize me. They say it's because of you why I felt okay and felt like I should go get the vaccine. I hear that all the time. There's so much misinformation and politics involved in vaccines and in science and in medicine. It doesn't give me hope that we have learned our lessons and are in a better position to deal with future pandemics. As a country, I'm fearful. I've been given this amazing platform that I can use now to advocate, to educate, to dispel misinformation, and just to work alongside our communities to improve health and well-being for all. After one of the many waves of the pandemic, I sat down and I started putting the sculpture together with all the scars and the glue marks, the missing pieces. It came together just the way I wanted it and just the way that I was feeling at the time, which is perfectly imperfect. Next month, my scrubs, my vaccine card, and all the paraphernalia from that historic day will be showcased in the Smithsonian. I am going to feel so proud. It's going to be surreal. It's way more than I could have ever imagined my life to be.
If I don't believe it, just go looking for a job.
That absolutely.
See, I've said for years, hey, one of the worst things that a black person can do is start lying to yourself about race. You got to deal with the white supremacists. That's painful, because it is painful dealing with them. I will admit to that, and that is true. And I can understand it. Yeah. Try to find a way around it, because it's painful when you have to deal with them. Deal with anybody, but don't deal with them. Because, see, I mean, hey, the record shows we lose. And we don't know how. We don't know how. We haven't figured out a way out. And that's why we're always looking for an escape route. Well, I mean, it's the Chinese. That's why we're in this shape. Well, it's the Puerto Ricans. If it wasn't for them damn Puerto Ricans, black people would be on Easy Street. Well, that Mexican took my job. He ain't took your job. He was given the job. Given the job by who? The people who give out jobs. Well, who are they? Duh. Have you ever had a job? Who gave it to you? Right, you know. Come on. Stop lying to yourself. That's what I say to all the black people throughout the world.
Amanda Aronchik from our Planet Money podcast heard about a hiring controversy last year at one of the country's biggest meat processors. So she went to see if Tyson Foods was taking away jobs from U.S. citizens and giving them to migrant workers.
When Kamakaro first migrated to the U.S., he spent a few months living in the shelter system in New York City. Things were pretty bleak. That is, until he heard about a job with Tyson Foods. My co-reporter Carlos Garcia asked him how he first heard about it.
¿Cómo supo usted del trabajo en Tyson?
A través de un compañero de viaje que venía con nosotros.
His friend told him to go to this office building in Manhattan, and he went. Filled in an application, took a drug test, showed his work permit, and that day he got an offer, $16.50 an hour to cut up chickens. So he moved to a small town in Tennessee and headed to the plant for his first day at work.
Primer día con frío. No me fue obligado. Ese día me fui yo con una franela allí. Me estaba muriendo el frío.
His first day was cold. He didn't know to bundle up, thought he might die of the cold. Thankfully, Kamakaro did not die. Now, Kamakaro is actually a family name. He asked that we not use his first name because he didn't want to risk losing his job. And he considers this job a blessing. He says, think of all the migrants who arrived in the U.S. He is one of the privileged ones to have gotten a job. Now, right as Kamakaro was getting his job, another Tyson Foods plant, this one in Perry, Iowa, was closing down. This is where the controversy comes in, because Tyson was laying off their workers in Iowa. Jody Wells worked there, and she remembers everyone being called down to the cafeteria.
Well, when we first got there, we were all laughing and joking, and, we're like family there, so.
Then the managers passed around a stack of papers announcing the closing.
And then when they handed that out, you could see people tear up and get mad, and they're asking, what do we do now?
This plant was Perry's biggest employer, and Jody was hearing from people in town about Tyson hiring elsewhere.
I know people are upset that they think that immigrants are taking people's jobs.
It's true that while people were being laid off in Iowa, Tyson was hiring migrants in New York. And the accusation was that the laid-off workers were not being given the same opportunities as the migrants. So we asked, did Tyson offer to pay people to move elsewhere, relocate to work at a different plant?
Yes, to Waterloo and Tennessee.
Jody, who worked for the union, said the offer was limited to only some workers. Tyson declined to give us an interview, but a rep emailed to say that anyone who worked at the plant could get a job at a different location. Either way, some of the Iowa workers could have moved to work in Tennessee. Tyson was not giving their jobs to migrants. Tyson Foods is actually one of the largest meatpacking companies in the country. And over the last decade, Tyson opened or expanded 17 facilities, but they also closed 18 large facilities. It's an industry with a high turnover rate. Churning through workers, hiring in one place, laying off somewhere else, is baked into how Tyson does business. That checked out when we followed up with Kamacaro.
Buenas tardes. ¿Cómo le va? Bien.
Kamacaro says he was laid off by Tyson in January. He didn't know why, and Tyson had no comment. Amanda Aronchik, NPR News.
It's a direct question, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, as some Republicans have said?
I really don't know. Could be.
The Trump administration's plan to shrink the federal government is targeting multiple civil rights efforts. At the Labor Department, a draft proposal would nearly dismantle an office that investigates discrimination by federal contractors. NPR's Andrea Hsu looks at what this could mean for workers, and here is where I want to let you know that this report includes descriptions of sexual assault.
Unless you're a company that does work for the federal government, you've likely never heard of the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs. Its primary role has been enforcing an executive order signed by President Lyndon B. Johnson in 1965 at the height of the Civil Rights era. It required most federal contractors to take steps to ensure women and people of color have the same opportunities as others, that there aren't barriers to employment or to promotions.
Not all companies are willing to look under the hood voluntarily to see whether they have a problem.
Jenny Yang oversaw this work at the Labor Department during the Biden administration. She notes federal contractors employ a whopping 20% of the U.S. workforce, so the old executive order has been a big deal. It's given rise to groups like Chicago Women in Trades, whose mission is getting women in the door. For decades, they've trained women to become plumbers, electricians, pipe fitters, sheet metal workers. In recent years, the group has worked hard to meet what's expected to be a construction boom, with billions of new dollars approved for federal infrastructure projects. Jane Valinga is the group's executive director.
We have doubled our programs, we've doubled our staff, we've really tried to meet this moment.
At the heart of this, she says, is ensuring women have a path to good-paying middle-class jobs. In Chicago, a union carpenter earns $55 an hour. But now this progress is threatened. Trump revoked Johnson's executive order on his second day in office. Lauren Sugarman, now Valinga's colleague at Chicago Women in Trades, is mourning its end.
It is a huge loss, what's happening now.
In 1980, Sugarman was enrolled in a vocational program aimed at getting more women and African Americans into the steel mills. Then an industrial giant came calling, a well-known company that had won a federal contract to maintain and repair elevators for the Chicago Housing Authority. Under Johnson's executive order, the company had to at least try to recruit women. Sugarman recalls her interview.
I always called it a disinterview. It was basically, you don't want this job is too dirty for you, this job is too dangerous for a girl, you really won't like it.
She took the job anyway. It was hard work, and she did encounter problems. Sugarman says men grabbed her breasts and made rape jokes in packed elevators. But she stuck with the company for 6 years, eventually working on other projects, including at Sears Tower.
There were 100 elevators and escalators in the building, and at that point it was the tallest building in the world.
Now she wonders if the small forays that women have made in the trades will simply vanish. The Labor Department did not respond to NPR's request for comment. Now, Jane Valinga will tell you the 1965 executive order and the government's work to enforce it only went so far.
None of these things were fantastic. I want to be clear about that. There was more of an emphasis on checking boxes, but it was something.
Now she fears some federal contractors won't bother to consider women at all.
They are not civil rights organizations. They're builders. For how many people will this fall off the priority list?
Plenty of women have proven they can do the work and do it well, she says. But you can prove nothing if you can't get your foot in the door. Andrea Hsu, NPR News.
The gay rights movement is changing everything.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. If you saw the front pages of today's newspapers, you will have seen this shocking story on the Mail on Sunday. The headline read, "Nurse branded danger to public for calling racist transgender paedophile Mr." The story is about Jennifer Mele, who works at St Helier Hospital in Surrey and was called the N-word 3 times by a patient from a high-security men's prison. She was investigated and disciplined by the hospital for accidentally addressing the patient, who was born a man but identifies as a woman, as Mr. She's now filing a legal claim supported by Christian Legal Centre against the hospital trust, and she joins me now. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming in. We have covered many people's stories over the last nearly 4 years on this show. This story, I think, is the craziest of all. Would you mind just telling us what happened?
It was quite shocking on that day, being on a night shift. Like any other usual night shift, you know, you would have handovers, you know, and take over from the day staff, everybody willing to, you know, excited to go home, and now taking over. And in the beginning, we had a very good sort of, you know, transition, and saying, you know, going around the wards and meeting the patient, saying hello, introducing ourselves, like the new staff here now to take over. And we quite had a calm first 2 couple of hours. And it just came daunting to me when my colleague ran towards me in distress. She was so shaken, and she said, "Jennifer, I need help. There's a patient that needs, you know, he just says he wants to self-discharge, very outrageous, causing mayhem, and very disruptive to the rest of the patient, being trauma and orthopedic ward."
And there wasn't a doctor, so it was your job to go and sort this.
Yes, it has a nurse in charge.
Yeah.
So I had to support her. So my question for her was like, did you bleep the doctor? Because that would be the next step if someone wanted to self-discharge. And she said yes, and I said, okay, I'll come and help you. You know, she was a new nurse in the ward, and being a junior nurse, she needed a lot of support. So in that case, I said, when you phone the doctor, I'll take over and I just support you and let, if he wants to self-discharge, if there's anything at all we can do before letting him go. I was trying actually to be nice. Usually, you know, we would just let them go. But in this case, I was trying to help so we can get some medication and stuff if he wanted anything for pain. And so luckily when the doctor phoned back, and I just spoke to the doctor and I said, Mr. X would like to self-discharge. What can we do? Is there anything we can do? Would you like to prescribe anything we can give him? And he overheard me, obviously. I wasn't too far from the nursing station, and began yelling and rowing, "I'm a miss, don't call me this."
Sorry, I just want to make one point.
Yes.
You have to say this is a male because I understand it involved a catheter.
Yes.
So it would have been confusing medically to try and explain.
Because this was a urology doctor.
Yes.
Yes, and I had to identify, yes, and that's what I did. So in this case, he became so outrageous and began to call me the N-word multiple times. And despite me trying to calm the situation, I said, I'm trying to help you. Usually, we would just call security for you and send you, you know, they would come and just walk you out.
And he lunged for you, didn't he?
And yes,
shackles, right?
Yes, he had 2 prison guards. And with chains and buffs on his legs as well, and he was lashing, actually got out of bed, lashing at me, and I was shaking. I had to just take a few steps back, racially abused, and calling me the N-word multiple times, and I said, "You got to calm down." And at that point, I was shaking. I had to just walk away and leave the environment.
You explained to him that he was upset because you weren't addressing him as female, and you explained to him, look, I'm happy to call you by the preferred name that you want, but this goes against my belief.
Christian faith. And I said, I'm happy to call you by your preferred name, feminine name that, you know, we had on the board. I said, I'm happy to call you that, but I cannot refer to you as
that's your right. You have gender-critical beliefs. We have the right to have those beliefs.
Yes, and Christian faith. And I'm a very strong believer, and I'm a street preacher as well. So I cannot go against...
Unfortunately, people are very sympathetic towards you up to that point.
Yeah. Yeah, so I really thank God for this because of the faith that I have. It's kept me strong throughout the first couple of months from May last year. And I thank Jesus for just giving me the courageous spirit that standing on the Word of God, I had to say, because according to the Word of God, Genesis 1:27 said, God created them male and female. And I just stood by it. I said, well, I'm a Christian person, a woman.
You're allowed to say woman here.
Yes, I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian girl. I'm a Christian girl, and I love the Lord. And I know, you know, beyond male and female is an abomination to the Lord, and I can't do that.
Well, it's not bad. I mean, Darwin would argue that there's male and female. Believers in Darwin will say the same thing. But the point is, your shift finished.
Yes.
You went home, obviously, I imagine, traumatized from what sounds like an incredibly upsetting incident, and then this is where things take an even worse, incredible, terrible turn.
Oh, yes. Going home traumatized, and to come back being now a subject of investigation, disciplinary action for apparently
for
misgendering a male prisoner.
So you were informed that they said they wanted you to write a statement for them.
Write a statement within 24 hours, and they wouldn't let me have my legal representative, my union, and which I requested on writing, and I was told, if you can't provide that, I'll tell you to pick up your bags and leave, and you'll be suspended. So I was forced to do this overnight. We've had no help to produce this statement.
And by the way, did they address the racist attack that happened to you? Did they provide any counselling or try and see if you were okay?
I don't think they were concerned about my feelings or how I was racially abused. They were referring to the patient as, if the patient is their first concern, which is my first concern. That's why I'm a nurse. I'm a very passionate nurse, and I love my job. For 12 years of my nursing, I've always enjoyed my job.
You've never had any complaints?
No complaints. I've had always lovely nurses,
You're
staff.
a senior nurse.
Yes, senior nurse. I've worked my way up, and it's been by the grace of God that, I'm still with it. Many people really be, undergoing a lot of depression and anxiety. It did take a toll on me, and but I had good support from Christian Concerns and my friends and families, and my bishop, Mark Nicholson, has been so amazing.
So what happened? So you wrote this report, or you wrote in a statement what had happened to you.
Yes.
What was the trust's next move then? What did they do?
The next move was to take me through panels and to try to. They were trying to make me conform to the norm if in the case of another patient or who is maybe calling himself as a woman, would you not do this? And yes, trying to trick me in a way that so I would just
do what they wanted.
Do what they wanted, and I just stood by my word. I said, because of my Christian faith, I can't. I'm happy to call them by that name, and that's as far as it goes. I can't refer to a man as a woman or a woman as a man. It's against my faith.
So what happened after all of that then? Once you've been through that process, what did they decide? What did the fate mean?
We had sort of disciplinary at the end of it. I think yes, I was referred to the NMC, And
the nurses.
Yeah, the Nursing and Midwifery Council, and which now is still on the case, still ongoing. And I was given a written warning, a final written warning. Now, mind you, I've never had a warning or report. So having a final written warning, and so with my legal rep, we had an appeal, which until to date, they haven't got a date yet for the appeal, for the written warning on my file.
My understanding is that you've also been moved now. So
yes.
You can't claim, your name's been taken off the system, the internal system, so you can't now work overtime, which obviously that makes a big financial difference to you and your family. And it's, in essence, as a senior nurse, this is a demotion, right?
Yes, in a sense, because when I was redeployed, I was actually working as, you know, I was demoted in a way because I was not working the role that, you know, I was supposed to be working. Literally redeployed to a different department. And I remember, you know, the matron saying, oh, you know, you're not allowed to do extra shifts if you wanted to. You're now, from now on, you can do this extra shift. So after 5 days, I was quite, you know, being redeployed and just doing the normal hours, and I was in tears actually. And then my daughter said, Mommy, why don't you just send them an email and said you can't cope, you need to do your extra shifts. And I did send an email, and she's got back to me and she said, we will contact HR and see if you can just do day shifts in where I was redeployed. It was just within the first 1 week. So then I began doing a couple of bank shifts in this ward, but they said you're not allowed to work in any other departments or even anywhere else. It was, as I felt I was being punished for my faith, I felt like I was the prisoner here, being threatened by the management, and I had nothing to say, and it was like, just go by what they say. It was difficult. I had a quite traumatic couple of months.
Yeah.
Yes.
On top of this racist abuse.
On top of the racist abuse.
From a paedophile.
Yes, plus my case being ongoing with the NMC, having to be writing reports after reports of the incident is almost overwhelming.
Have you heard of the saying, the process is the punishment?
Yes.
Where they make you write these reports, it goes on for months, sometimes years, and that's what that's how they hope that you give up.
Yes.
Of course you haven't.
No, my faith in Christ has been so amazing, and I know, and one thing I remember, and I said, Lord Jesus, I remember the scripture in Jeremiah 29:11. It says you have good plans for you, and it's not to harm you but to prosper you. And I said, Lord, this word must become alive in my life. With my career, you said you have good plans for me, and I've always wanted to be a nurse. And I said, Lord, if it's your will for me to be a nurse, there's no one that can take this away from me, because I worked very hard, even after 3 children I returned back to school just to please my dad, because I had my kids quite very young, and I felt like I disappointed my dad who brought me from Uganda when I was young. So I made the effort to go back to college and went to university. Yes, and had the kids.
For stating biological fact now, this dream that you've worked hard towards is now threatened, and you obviously had this incredible, just horrible year, and all because somehow the feelings of a sex offender somehow trumps the racist abuse that you received. It's disgusting.
Yes, I was quite disappointed that they were siding with a sex offender, a pedophile, for that matter, who had been actually luring boys, you know, pretending to be a
This is the irony, of course, is this person pretended to be a young teen girl to then try and get young boys involved in that. This is, like I said, incredible story. I commend you for your bravery and your strength coming through it and moving forward, and I know you have a lot of supporters out there who will be there with you. And thank you so much for coming in and telling us your story. Ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Jennifer Millay. spokesman for Epsom and St Helier University Hospitals NHS Trust said these matters are still subject to ongoing internal proceedings, so it wouldn't be right for us to comment further.
Context of White Supremacy. Gus T, Renegade, in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy. Today's date, Thursday, March 27, 2025. So I have been told our weekly broadcast, Neutralizing Workplace Racism, not for spectators or rants. Hopefully, sharing constructive information to help non-white workers solve problems without creating new problems, figure out counter-racist techniques, suggestions, minimize problems with non-white coworkers, minimize problems with white coworkers, how to respond if you are accused of stealing the weed whacker, paper clips, rubber bands, whatever else they might have on the premises, what to do if they name call you, don't spell your name correctly, make errors in your weekly, bi-weekly compensation. The gambit of white supremacy racism. You have folks who do the fondling in the workplace, because we get lots of that. If you encounter well, first and foremost, anyone, ideas, techniques, what to do, make sure you don't get accused of no misgendering in the workplace. Let us know, because we need all kinds of suggestions, apparently all over the world. Man, they will misgender you. If you are a Negro in the workplace, not they will misgender you, they will accuse you of some misgendering. If you are a black person in the workplace anywhere in the known universe. So if you have any tips, help non-white people minimize problems, minimize conflict, avoid being accused of misgendering. Don't you sit there silent, mum. Share the suggestions, spoils, if you will. The number 605-313-5164. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Number again, 605-313 5164, the code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. We'll get to the clips, emails, all that good stuff. The email untiljustice@gmail.com, untiljustice@gmail.com. You can write in that way if you have ideas, thoughts, techniques that help minimize racism and or anti-blackness in the workplace. Feel free to share. untiljustice@gmail.com. Tips for any of the folks. If you try to dial in, because sometimes we get all kinds of racist interference, if you're trying to share for Neutralizing Workplace Racism, you can always utilize the free app. Works anywhere in the world. We've had some of our guests use it, even outside the U.S. Listeners, seems to work well. If you just want to listen, or even if you want to participate, you can download it. Android, iPhone, free conference call HD.com. Again, free conference call HD.com. You'll see the app. You can download it. Works just like the phone. Same number, same dial-in code, 564943 pound. Very easy, and you can listen. You can press star 61. Hand up if you would like to join in, but that is the free way. I know some folks say that they are prohibited because they'll try to add all these strange fees and or will just not connect you if you try to dial in via phone. So that is another option. And they have the web-based VoIP dialer, where that way you don't have to dial or download anything, free right in your browser, and same procedure where you can listen and or participate if you have a mic on your device. All of that said, I had the audio segments for today's Neutralizing Workplace Racism broadcast put together or collated basically pretty early in the week. I found those reports, was particularly excited about that report, the last report about all this misgendering apparently with nurse Jennifer Malele over in the UK. But man, oh man, as the week continued, as I said, I already had the clips together, and that's kind of lengthy, right? That's a little bit longer than what I would normally play, but a lot of it because that segment on Nurse Malele, black female victim of white supremacy, and in fact you heard Uganda, Idi Amin's cousin, right? That segment alone was like 15 minutes, maybe even a little longer than that. Like, it was chunky. We had so much detail about how they terrorized her. Anyway, so I had all that, was excited. But I'm still paying attention to the news. There's so many things related to workplace racism, DEI, and all over the world, right? DEI and change of policies, and what did Trump do, and folks getting fired here, and National Health Services, they cut a lot of jobs today and what have you. I mean, just all kinds of things. There was a report out of Milwaukee yesterday. Whew. I'm so glad we have been talking about workplace racism for well over a decade. Well over a decade, where we have addressed this sort of thing specifically. We've talked about it in detail, and even just to be aware, because I will have to be totally honest, if you had addressed me before the cows existed, anytime, so before Obeezy gets to the White House, before 2009, if you'd said, hey, workplace, what are your concerns, things that we need to think about, or what have you, what I'm about to play now, it would not have been in my brain computer at all. And also, if you'd said, do you know Michael Swango, I would have said no. Never heard of that, and that's such a peculiar name, right? I would not, no, it's not familiar. It doesn't mean anything to me. I've never heard of this dude. Like, if you showed me a picture, nope, don't know anything about any of that. Michael who? Swango what? Like, what are you talking about? Okay, Catherine Massey Book Club, right? Woo! This is from Wisconsin Local News, Wednesday. That would be March 26, 2025.
First, here at 6 o'clock, a Milwaukee man accused of putting super glue in his coworker's drink.
Yeah, so this act was all caught on camera. 12 News' Hannah Hilliard live at Wisconsin State Fair Park tonight. And Hannah, that's where investigators say this crime took place.
Right, Blake, adding to the strangeness of this case, a vendor who had an office here at the Wisconsin State Fair Park accused of spiking his coworker's soda with super glue. Caught in the act, investigators say this photo shows 34-year-old Joseph Ross slipping super glue into his coworker's Coca-Cola can. Wisconsin State Fair Park police learning of the incident while patrolling the Expo Center. A vendor on the fairgrounds stopping the officers to tell her story. According to the criminal complaint, she says earlier in the month she, quote, became ill after noticing her drinks had a strong chemical smell and taste. So she set up a camera below her work computer on March 20th at 9:23 a.m. By 9:52 a.m., that camera capturing this image, confirming her suspicions. Ross admitting to investigators he placed a supplement in his coworker's drink. 12 News legal expert Craig Maschinchuno.
The way I'm reading that is that it was an attempt to deceive the investigators while making an admission.
Investigators executed a search warrant looking for the supplement, finding instead these gloves and this Gorilla super glue in a trash can near Ross and the victim's office. Your biggest takeaway from this criminal complaint?
Unusual, and I'm in the nothing is ever unusual business. You don't see this a lot.
What makes it unusual?
Well, this is a statute that is not typically charged because there's not a lot of instances where police or the authorities catch somebody putting something in someone's drink.
Ross is charged with placing foreign objects in edibles. He's in custody on a $10,000 bond.
Yeah, Hannah, you certainly don't see this often. The big question here, though, is why?
So, Blake, the criminal complaint did not mention any sort of motive for Ross, but we do know that he is no longer allowed here on the fairgrounds property. The State Fair Police issuing a no trespass order against him.
All right, Hannah Hilliard live in West Dallas for us tonight at 6. Thank you.
Please, they don't listen to the Catherine Massey Book Club and or Neutralizing Workplace Racism here at the C.O.W.S, because once I became aware of Michael Swango, that ain't no wow. That's so rare and peculiar and no, it is not. Don't make me go back and find that report. That white woman put laxatives in the brownies, and I think she was giving these as a present for an employee who was leaving. So it's not like this is somebody who, you know, cost me a job, cost me a promotion. I'm tired of looking at their ugly face every day, and I got to think, you know, they messed me over. I was going to get my mortgage paid off a little bit early. They messing me over thinking I'm going to get this raise, I'm going to get this promotion, and they done messed me over, and I'm upset about it, I'm going to fix your whack. Nah, this person is out of here. Sayonara, I will never see them again, as opposed to good riddance. Enjoy these brownies. They are fudgy. And they caught her, and I think she squealed to someone that she had put the laxatives in the brownies, and they told and sent her to jail. You know, chemical, biological poisoning, folks. You know, but I mean, it's bunches of these cases, and these are coworkers. These are not, you know, I went and put the super glue in somebody's soda or slushy or coffee or tea or whatever it is that I've never seen before, or just some old colored boy that I don't like and I think, you know, raped my daughter or something. This is, you know, Margaret. We've been working together for 6 months now. I ain't got no vendetta against her. This is even a white person. Swango. He was poisoning all these other white coworkers out in Illinois. That's where all that started at. And at Ohio State, got the spicy chicken. We talked about all this way before Neutralizing Workplace Racism. How much detail did we give? Gus T, number one, if you need any more reminders, you get to work, it's not the time or the place to be just, oh, you brought in new bananas? Oh, you brought in new muffins? Oh, you brought a new cobbler? No. And I wouldn't care if you work with all people classified as black and they got 8 great-grandparents all born in Mississippi. Who cares? This is not the place to be. You got a job, bring your own food, and now we talked about this in so much detail. It was with those water bottles, beverage containers that are locked. And when I mean locked, they have a security code that you can enter, like you can pick your birthday or your daughter's child's date of birth or whatever. And they have some, they scan your fingerprint. They will only open when that fingerprint gets scanned or when you put in the code. Other than that, they stay closed. These are water bottles. Now, these are not super expensive. And in fact, some of these came out after COVID because they have children's versions of these. So you can give them to your child. They can take it to school or wherever. And that way, just so that another child doesn't accidentally grab their water bottle to drink out of and get all their cooties and stuff on it. You can, same thing, give it a 3-number code or finger swipe scan, and it will bing, just unlock for that one child. And I said you can get that for the workplace. And in fact, I haven't said pricing these are not expensive items. I mean, certainly they do have versions of these that are very pricey, that have all kinds of, as they say, bells and whistles, that, will keep your beverage at a certain temperature, that are self-cleaning and all this other stuff. But they have some that are just a water bottle that is locking, has a smart lock feature on it. Like I said, a code that you can pick, or it will scan your fingerprint. But man, for the workplace, that might be a constructive investment. Wow. I mean, I don't even know what to say. Because they didn't explain. Now, maybe at the fair in Wisconsin, maybe they had a vendetta. You've been stealing the corn dogs. I don't know. But super glue, I thought for a lot of the super glue, it has like a notification on it, warning, poison. Doesn't it say that on it? If you inject, you could, that's not no, you got stuck on the toilet for a little, you could die from, drinking all, and it seemed like he did it more than, man. No eating if your employees, and I would say, because with Swango, it was in so many different ways I hadn't even thought of. He would go get the food, and if they do order takeout or something, he'd go get it and bring it in, and whammo, get them that way, or he, make something at home, bring it in. No eating food in the workplace. And we've even talked about being cautious about how you store your food. I've said before, I would not use the company refrigerator. I know many, especially if it's a larger business that you work at, and they might have a cafeteria area and a refrigerator area, aside from how often it's cleaned, or if people leave their food in there for 8 months or whatever the case, I would not use the refrigerator. They steal food lots. They might pick over your food. Same thing, Swango, all the rest of it. I would not use the refrigerator. We heard, I think, caller at the courthouse in Florida had talked about they took his beverage out, put it on the floor and all that. And same thing in terms of cost effective, they have portable refrigerators. And when I say portable, I mean something that's about the size of a lunchbox that you could easily transport to work on a daily basis, and it will lock, keep everything inside at a set temperature. It's portable, large enough that you could get, whatever you brought, Tupperware container with your goodies that you're going to eat, leftover bok choy and green beans, whatever you're going to eat. Whammo, could fit it right in there. Probably a drink too. And they have some of these that are a little larger, so you could probably get a meal and a beverage in, and you could just take it with you every day. Certainly they have coolers that are even cheaper and would accomplish the same thing, that you could keep with you in your office or by your person, in your backpack or what have you. Do not allow your coworkers easy access to your food. And I would even say, I've recommended before, keep all that in your vehicle, like your lunch or what have you. You can keep it in the trunk, vehicle, but I would keep it right there with you at all times so they don't have that opportunity. Because it sounds like with this soda can thing, she might have just got up and walked away, turned her back, and fix your wagon. Steal my corn dogs at the fair if you want to. Might even, and I think with Swango, that's how he was getting them too. They turn around, he was bringing in food and stuff too, but you turn your back and bang. I know some people have a code. If you go out to the club, got to do some dancing, but if you go out to the club or what have you, so I got to go to the, restroom, powder my nose right quick. If I got a drink on the table, you go to the bathroom, drink is done. Throw that one out. I have to get somebody to get me a new drink, fresh one, that I can watch them, pour and serve it up and everything once I get back. But might have to be the same policy in the workplace. If I got coffee out on the desk or what have you, and I got to go to the bathroom, I have to finish my coffee before I go to the bathroom or toss it. If you got a water bottle, that's what I'm saying. You can get water bottles that lock, but that would have to be something that I think about. Wow, you cannot just leave a drink out on the desk at work, because they will Swango you up in. And he put Gorilla Glue in the soda, and the police said when they went to ask him about it, oh no, it was just supplement, that's all. Even if it was vitamin E, what, like a laxative, even if it wasn't something that's gonna kill me, I don't want you to, man. Contrary to what they said in the report, this is very, very common in the workplace. Guard your beverages, snacks, no eating. Said tried to give black men. Even that makes me think, because we've heard a number of times where white people have got angry in the workplace where they had food or they had some sort of potluck or Christmas, birthday, whatever, and it was going to be food, and the black person's like, oh, I'm good with it. What? What? I done put all this time making these pumpkin muffins, and you're not going to eat? Boy, we going to force feed Leroy? That sort of thing. That even greater pause. Like, really now? How about you just give me a raise, and that way I know I can. We all know I had enough to eat because I have a raise, and I can get me 15 bologna sandwiches if I need them. You know, no, I can't get that. Okay. Let's see. The reports that we heard, I had to get that in right. I didn't need it, but it was just like Gorilla Glue in the soda of a coworker. How can I not play that? We read Michael Swango for nothing? Okay, the reports that we did, man, we start off with the cronyism, also one of our favorites here at the C.O.W.S. for neutralizing workplace racism, specifically in talking about all the different ways you see manifest where white people who are not qualified end up with jobs, powerful jobs, stay employed for a very long time because, you know, their auntie is married to the person who owns the company, or maybe auntie owns the company, or their auntie works in human resources, so they, you know, knew when all the jobs are going to be open and already earmarked, as they say, this job for her nephew or niece, daughter-in-law, whatever it is, that sort of thing. We have heard the whole time we've been talking about neutralizing workplace racism, we've been talking about this. Not black people who got, you know, sons and daughters and grandchildren that they can hook up with jobs everywhere. So they say this is baked into the system. Spoils system. Patronage system for federal jobs. Baked in. And they didn't even use my term. Cronyism. Nepotism. Maybe they don't like using those ism or make them think of that other one. We just call it spoils. See? Patronage. It's ignorant. We got all these white ignoramuses. You mean, so for generations they know, white people know, we got a system that is set up. We're going to have lots of unqualified white people in really important positions. And that's just a part of how it goes. You know, got the right dad, right mom, right home. You went to school and made friends with the right folks in kindergarten or whatever it is. But if you're white, we already know lots of unqualified white people in important positions. Got it. System of white. Meanwhile, you have black people that are overqualified and you can't even get a job sweeping, cleaning the toilet. It's a merit system. You've heard that M word again. We don't get a system of merit. Meanwhile, President Trump and Brother Eli said, we don't do all that. we don't do all that. We can go back. You behave yourself, maybe you get a job. You don't, you go back to calling it Panama Canal, Gulf of Mexico, and acting a fool, then, well, maybe you don't get a job. Spoil, you don't get no spoils. That is that. And again, this is not white people are ignorant. You might have white people that are not qualified, but this is not something where white people are uninformed or unaware. What? You mean we hire all these unqualified, ignorant white people? Really? They know this. They know that. They're all right with this. Cronyism, nepotism. This is what they want. Now, I suspect if Al Sharpton was able to get his nephews and grandchildren, if he was able to hook them up and get them jobs and everything, and they were taken over at MSNBC, I suspect they would feel very differently about nepotism and cronyism then. Let's see. The segment where they were talking about nurse Sandra Lindsay. We heard a couple different black female nurses in that segment. Nurse Sandra Lindsay, that was the black female nurse victim of racism. She was talking about the 5 years of the pandemic and the impact that it's had on her personally. And she said she included the impact of seeing people that look like herself. And I always think that's kind of a convoluted way. I mean, just, I'm classified as black, especially when they have audio piece. But I'm classified as black, and then seeing lots of black people, non-white people, coming in here, and probably how they arrived here, medical apartheid, like generations of it, no access to healthy foods, and then racist doctors, you know, you go in and try to get help, and they're nasty and rude to you. Shut up, you raping, looting Negro, shut up. That sort of thing. How they ended up here, and then even once they end up here, how they're treated. Like, yeah, I could see that being very stressful. And then you don't have no personal protective equipment. Remember, that was a big part of it too. I can imagine all that being very stressful. And then she talked about, Nurse Lindsay, she talked about going through all of this, and then her grandson was born prematurely, probably classified as black. Medical apartheid, see what I said? Generations of medical apartheid and all of the stress epigenetics of white supremacy racism. Total system. Got you. Fuller said, I got your health. And she said, I just had to persevere and go through all that. John Henry, I had to persevere and couldn't share and talk about any of this with my colleagues, which I would say, hey, we are not here to talk with your other co-workers and such about that sort of strife, because I would not expect any sort of sympathy or what have you, not even per se if they were classified as black. That would be a pleasant surprise if they did. Shut up and get back to work. Take that blood pressure, and, you know, don't think you're going to get no extra days off or whatever because we're short-staffed, and you better save the gloves and masks that you got. That's what I would expect in a system of white supremacy racism. But I mean, that just adds to the trauma. You got to go through all, and I mean, I can't even imagine how grueling it would be to be a healthcare worker through all of that of COVID-19, and people saying, I'm not going to wear a mask, all this. You got to go through that for all those years and be understaffed, and you don't know if you even going to have personal protective equipment. Sheesh. And I'm black. Man. Deuces on all of that. Much obliged, Nurse Lindsay. We had the section on the Tyson hiring non-white migrants as opposed to white people, or at minimum, at least hiring people who were born in this part of the world and them doing an investigation. It seemed like I didn't really hear any evidence that, man, they're giving away our good jobs at the Tyson meatpacking plant to these old no-count, undocumented criminal migrant, non-white migrants. I didn't really hear no evidence of that per se. It did not really sound like the coolest stuff, because the non-white person that they were talking to, I think the name that he gave, Kamakaro, said that he got laid off. When they got to the end, he got laid off anyway. And they said that seems to just be a part of how they run the business anyway. Maybe you can, move to one of their other facilities in Tennessee, maybe not. But he got laid off anyway. So I don't even know. He's saying that they stole or are encouraging non-white people who are undocumented criminals to hop the border and come work at Tyson for a few months or a year and then be laid off. And what? The person most to blame for all that would not be Kamakaro. It would still be individuals classified as white. And they have so many stories on the exploitative practices at those meatpacking facilities, and even getting a lot of because a lot of times they don't just get no 20-year-old, 30-year-old, 18-year-old Kamakaro to come over here and work at the Chicken Gizzard facility. They get 12, 13, 14-year-old Kamakaro to come and work at the Chicken Gizzard facility and to work at 2 a.m. We had lots of those stories. So I mean, I guess you could say, they're stealing the migrants to come do this, but I don't know how many white people want to work at the Chicken Gizzard factory at 2 a.m. Eat more veggies, maybe. I guess the last thing I'll get in, they were talking about all of the efforts at getting rid of federal employees and the Office of Federal Contract Compliance, and they track, are people practicing racism? Are you hiring white women? Are you being rude and nasty to LGBTQ and all the rest of it? The Chicago women in trades, they were talked about in that report, they are 70% black and Latina. Now that's on their website. Mr. Fuller recommends not using the term Latina. I agree with that completely. That is not a racial classification, but at minimum it sounds like it might be a number of non-white people, black and or otherwise, in the Chicago Women in Trades Union, and the concern about whether federal employees will have the ability to enforce that these businesses are not practicing racism, and maybe they'll even cut that whole office out, the Office of Federal Contract Compliance, get rid of that completely. That's, sounds kind of DEI-ish anyway. Anywho, and that was a segment where they talked about some of the females, where she talked about being in that industry, the trade industry in Chicago, where they did not have very many females at first, and she had to deal with rape jokes and them touching her boobs, fondling. Said we hear about that all the time. We've talked about that explicitly. Practice, knock that hand away, do not touch me ever. Write down, and they're making rape jokes. I would write those down. Can you repeat, por favor? Write it down. Date, time, who said it, all that. Verify that you got it accurately. Just showing that you're serious. I think a lot of circumstances can nip that stuff in the bud. Anyhoodles. So much I could say about the misgendering, but I'll pause there and see if we have folks who have suggestions, tips. Certainly, if you have your own problems, that is always, feel free, dial in. The number is 605-313-5164. The code 564-943#. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. The email untiljustice@gmail.com. untiljustice@gmail.com. Let us know if you have certainly any suggestions. If we have folks who have been accused, we heard Bay Area Mom, if we have any other non-white people who have been accused of so-called misgendering in the workplace, where someone has, said that they, or whatever their gender identification is going to be, and then they, say you called them Mr. or Ma'am when they've said that they, identify in a different manner. Have any other non-white people, have they had that, problem in the workplace? Have people figured out, hey, I certainly call people what they want to be called. That's even wild, because the situation with Nurse Malele, this was a child rapist who was saying, you misgendering me. Woo. Anywho, but if we have any non-white people victims of racism, if you have been accused of that in the workplace, or have figured out, this is a pretty quality code, calling people what they want to be called, regardless of what it is. Once they say, this is how I want to be addressed, we just go with that, leave it at that. But let us know if you have any experience with that in the workplace. Certainly any of the folks, federal employees, if you're, dealing with that kind of ongoing confusion, anxiety. Are we going to be fired? Are we going to have to send in an email and justify what we did this week and what we're going to do next week and all the rest of it? Let us know how all that is unfolding. Certainly if you've been, DEI'd, as they say, as well, you can let us know. We'll get email in as well as we are proceeding, and then nab folks who dialed in, hopefully not spectating. Same thing I've said for a long time, for the folks who are spectating, hopefully what that means is you are not being mistreated in the workplace and that you are compensated correctly. Hey, if that is the case, let us know how you did this. We are dying to know. See if we can, maybe replicate, if you found certain things to say or not say, certain pieces of policy and procedure that have really aided your corporate rise. Please share if you are not being harmed, mistreated in the workplace. Now, Email number 1, the email again, untiljustice@gmail.com. Email. Hi, Gus and Cal's audience. You asked about the white shenanigans that take place on the plantation I work at. Here are a few examples. Number 1, turning up to online meetings in bedclothes. I remember that one. Number 2, claiming to work in the extended hours so they accrue enough time in lieu. They can take weeks of leave as time owed. Yet it's not clear what work was produced for all the extra hours of work. Now that's the one I love, where they sit around in the footies, sleep, and claim that they were slaving. We had to do all this overtime. 3, refusing to go into the office due to sensory overload, but able to tolerate said conditions if the pay is higher. Wow. I love it. Sensory overload. What does that mean? Is that like a medical condition, or you get a doctor's note that says like Katie is suffering from sensory overload? She spent too much time in front of the computer, or she had her virtual reality goggles on too long and she just needs to chill out for a little while. I want her to go home, read, no TV, no work, no computer, just, chill. Put the iPhone down. Like, what? Sensory over and now my eyeballs are a little strained, but if I'm gonna get double time, maybe I don't have sensory overload. What is going on? Like, come on, white man. Let's see. Drunk during work hours. Is this Abraham Bolden echo from Dealey Butt? Man, I think we just talked about this. Didn't we just talk about this? I got to get my Mad Dog 20. I can't wait for happy hour. I know it's only 1 p.m., but I need to get me the Mad Dog 2020 is calling me right now. Come on. Come on. She said they got to drink, and she didn't even say drinking. She said drunk during. So this is not, I had a sip of Mad Dog 2020. This is like I had to drink the whole bottle. Come on. Evidence of being drunk on divisional online meeting calls. That is so, like, I cannot. If that was Leroy, Al Sharpton, Obama, Melissa Harris Perry, I'm not Michelle Obama. Like, what? What? You are slurring your words and all that. Man, we thought you were a raping crackhead. Now you've been drinking the Mad Dog. Beat it, Leroy. Beat it. Let's see. I lost my place. 5. Not turning up to team away days when the company has paid for travel and hotel costs on top of wages. And they didn't want to travel all that distance. Turning a blind eye. That's the Swango book. See there? See? Turning a blind eye to the fact that drunk is getting paid but hasn't been to work for months. Oh, I remember that one. She stole some of the petty cash funds too to go out to the bar, we think, or at least the nudie bar, maybe, we think, and they didn't even care. That's another one. Imagine if Al Sharpton had done that. Paid a loan from work to cover her housing costs, drinking the loan, collapsing in the pub because the drunk is wasted, taken to the hospital because her heart stopped. Police contacted her former line manager at 10:30 at night. The ex-line manager was on maternity leave, so she called Shauna. That's the non-white supervisor. Woo! I cannot imagine passing out in a pub from fentanyl, tequila, or anything else, and they call my supervisor? And I still have a job? Even if I worked at a bar and I passed out at a bar and they called my bar supervisor to, what should we do? Gussie had one too many blue motorcycles. What should we do? I don't know. Oh, we'll figure it out. Then call back. Maybe we get him an Uber, or I don't know. We'll figure it out. Man. Finished with the list of shenanigans. Number 2. We had the first of right-wing Ashley's joint performance reviews this week. She and Zoe have been reviewing her performance for the past few months. Zoe and I agreed to do them jointly, as she does have knowledge of the work I lead or how right-wing Ashley's performance, so she relied on whatever she was told. With me there, she had to be as honest as possible for her. She apologized for not including me sooner. She's not sure why she didn't before. I said nothing. Nothing needed to be said. But she gave her thorough feedback on her performance. Love it, love it. Much obliged for the commentary. Just wow, I was a little taken aback because it was such a monstrous list. Some of them I do remember, jog my recollections, but wow. If you see white people doing these sorts of things on your job, I certainly would not take it as license that you should do the same thing, can do the same thing, any of it. Refute even the sensory. Oh, well, now I would document all of it. The sensory overload, drunk at the meetings, document it all. Date, times, names, all of it. They come back with any sort of allegations or just how they respond. These types of things happen in the future. How did we deal with this last time around? That can be very helpful, just seeing if everybody is indeed treated the same with regards to rules and protection in the workplace, or if it is something where, no, everybody kind of is operating under different rules. Maybe Sally doesn't have to come in. She can say she has sensory overload. You don't. You don't have sensory overload. My eyeballs feel like you don't have sensory overload. All right. Just want to know that. But I would document all of that. All of it. Dates, times. Much obliged. No, email again, untiljustice@gmail.com. Let's see. And those performance reviews, she's giving the performance review. That's just one. I notice frequently with non-white people, it'll be the opposite, where we can't get a performance review at all. If we're doing great work, where it would be a time to, kudos and commendate, and then maybe you can get a raise, promotion. Or even sometimes you might need supervision, and maybe we need to get you additional training. That happens sometimes. We delay your training, you don't get an opportunity to get that training, or we delay that review, you don't get an opportunity to get that training. Now we can just fire you. Say, oh, you're incompetent, stupid, Leroy, and we think you've been stealing our paper clips too, so get on out of here. Put those paper clips down. Get on out of here. That type of thing, as opposed to you get a chance to get all that corrected if we got those reviews in a timely manner, done professionally, and we're honest feedback, constructive feedback, trying to help out. Sounds like what they were trying to do here. Love it. Black person giving the review though. Anyway, the email untiljustice@gmail.com. untiljustice@gmail.com. Let us know, like I said, and if we have any folks specifically, because I had asked last week, I have concluded with regards to the workplace, many non-white people, we get furious about other non-white people in the workplace being discourteous, sometimes even anti-black, because we do a lot of mistreating to other non-white people. But wow, people classified as black, we can get explosively angry, emotional in our responses to how non-white people mistreat us or behave in a discourteous manner or even unprofessional manner in the workplace, as opposed to the same conduct, if not worse, from people classified as white. And I just, again, want to call attention to that. That's my observation. Years of study, talking to you all, listening to you all, and what have you, reading commentary as well. That's my observation. You all can let me know your thoughts on that as well. Fuller has even talked about that. He has a number of segments where he talks about racism on the job, and even saying, hey, we are not going to work I'm going to do a job on that black supervisor, so-called. He is not in charge, and he's got very specific about it. Don't care how large his desk is. Don't care how large her company parking space is, if they lease her a vehicle, or how many plaques they got on their door and all the rest of it. If they are not white, you know they are not in charge. You know some white person, even if they're not in the building, can get rid of them quickly. White people can show you this better than I can tell you. That said, white, and particularly I've heard it so frequently, we're not even fussing and complaining about like a black person that's our direct supervisor, like a black person that, you know, could hire us, fire us, make an impact on us getting a promotion, that sort of thing, raise. A lot of times we'll be like viscerally upset about just other black people who are what they would call our peers, you know, people that have about the same amount of power that we do in the workplace, which is very limited. And just frequently because they are discourteous, you know, they didn't speak to us or gave us a nasty look or, you know, made some sort of crude remark about us or called us, and, you know, we love the name calling, had to do some name calling in the workplace. None of this is correct behavior. All of that said, I just don't think, you know, being hostile and angry, I just don't, I don't even think that solves any problems. I mean, if we're really serious and want to solve some of these, you know, white people, non-white people doing these things to us in the workplace, hey, I do think we've even touched on some suggestions for dealing with some of that. You know, if they're calling you names in the workplace, you could be direct about this. I think we even talked about that last week. You could just, hey, excuse me, Johnny, could I talk to you? Or Mr. Jones, could I speak with you? Okay, Mr. Jones, look here. And you could even go the question route. I've noted, do you name call Mr. Wilson? Mr. Wilson be the CEO of the company. And see what they say. Why is it that you know, call me all kinds of names and coon this and Sambo that, but you don't name call Mr. Wilson? You not equal opportunity about your name calling? See what they say? Hey, you can even fast forward if you don't want to do all that. Hey, look here, Mr. Jones. I don't want to be called any names in the workplace. I try to be courteous to you, Mr. Jones. Call you by your name every time. I would appreciate the same professional courtesy. Just call me by my name. Thank you kindly. And same thing we said last week. If that, you know, doesn't get it done, you can let them know I am willing to go and speak to the white people about this. You don't name call other folks. Just be professional. Just stop calling me the names, please. That's all. You don't have to call me King, Gus, or, you know, nothing else. Just Gus. That's fine. Thank you. And no name calling. That's all. Very simple. I think there's strategies and methods to, you know, frequently, I won't say all the time, but frequently, there are ways to deal with and minimize non-white people mistreating you in the workplace. I'm all about seeking out those strategies, but just getting really angry and taking all that rage and just sitting around to stew and vent to others about non-white people that we dislike in the workplace. I just found that we do a lot of that. I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's productive. And in fact, it just reminds me of kind of the same pattern where I say the problem is white people because we so frequently, all of our focus and hostility gets focused on other victims of white supremacy. And even on that, especially on the job, those just can't be the people that are most to blame. It just can't be. Anyways, folks can let me know what they think on that one. But that has been my observation. Folks can let me know if they, you know, have any theories as to what might be motivating all that, if they've seen the same kind of pattern where our frustrations lied in the workplace. And again, not that I'm even saying that non-white people, we certainly do mistreat other non-white people in the workplace. And I think we've tried to offer a few suggestions on how to minimize some of that over the years on this very broadcast, over many years on this broadcast, and how to minimize. And I always start, I think one of the main suggestions that I give for that is, brothers and sisters, we are not. Got sound effects for that. Last week we got sound effects for that, man. Like when we go on these jobs anywhere in the known universe, we cannot have it in our brain computer, these black people got my back. You are setting yourself up for all kinds of disappointment and frustration. I think even I was talking about this, and it was one victim who was kind of saying that, thinking that, at some level, a lot of us, we kind of expect that white people, they do not have our back. We might not, come out and outright say that they're racist or whatever, but at some level, we kind of know white people do not have our back. For whatever reason, that does not apply with people who are not white and thinking that, oh man, Leroy is going to be cool and yeah, and they got it. No. United independent. That has to be the thought process in the workplace. And I say has because if that is not your thinking, you are going to be beyond disappointed, like furiously disappointed in the workplace because, man, one, it's so easy in the workplace. You're going to do this, Leroy, or you're going to get fired. And in this sort of environment, people are already stressed and confused. Am I going to have a job? I'm trying to hold on to my job and all this. It is so easy to manipulate people's behavior in that sort of environment. You're not friends. The people that we meet in the workplace, it's not like we're friends. It's not like you've known these people your whole life. I've never worked in a job situation like that where I've known these people my whole life and we went to school together and I know your parents and you know my, like, these are strangers. maybe you know one person there or two people there, but for the most part, these are strangers. So even if they're classified as black, even if they got eight great grandparents born in the state of Georgia, that does not mean we are cool and I've got some sort of high expectations about how they're going to treat me and they're going to look out for me and what regard they'll have for my work, my contributions to the company. None of the above. And if I'm wrong, I'll be pleasantly surprised. And if anything, I already got my code together because I'm not expecting them, to do right by me or anything. If they're unprofessional or mistreat me, already, boom, how do we deal with that to make sure we get that stopped? Because that is producing justice, getting rid of the mistreatment, getting rid of the mistreatment by anybody. Any hoodles, let's see. Number again, 605-313-5164, the code 564-943#. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. The email untiljustice@gmail.com. untiljustice@gmail.com. Let us know if you have observations, thoughts for the workplace, suggestions, if you've been accused of stealing the weed whacker. I know it's springtime now, so they might be looking for the weed whacker for real. If you've been accused stealing any of their equipment, any of the other goodies that they have in the workplace, let us know. Don't let them search your vehicle and such. Should be here for the Catherine Massey Book Club on Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Lots of work. Man, more so than I could have ever imagined. He talks about the author Abraham Bolden, black male, talks about all of the rampant drinking and unprofessionalism. And these are Secret Service agents and how rampant it was and compromising people's ability to do their job correctly. And this is law enforcement, protect the president and all these important and powerful white people. Sobriety would be best, and I think he was a teetotaler because he wasn't engaged in all this, Mr. Bolden. You have some sort of job, and they have a culture of drinking, and it sounds like he even said culture of unprofessionalism. Man, you do not want to be a part of that. If you are classified as black, you want to be professional. I drink water, unless you're at a bar, something like that. If you're at a job, you got to wear a tie, have credentials, a degree, maybe degrees, like plural. I went to school, paid attention, had to read a book, take tests, and that sort of thing to get out of nah. I do not want no sort of reputation. And boy, that Gus T will drink you under the bar. Woo! You get some of that vodka in him and that Red Bull and whoa, you do not want that sort of reputation, really, for any job. I'd even say if you work at a bar, you would not want that reputation. You're a professional, punctual, Dependable. You sign something, he is going to get it done on time. That's the reputation you want, not we. You get him out that happy hour, and man, he will cut some rug. Come on. Come on. Anyway, that's Mr. Bolden. We only read one section, and that was like a dominant, that racism. And he said the racism. They go out, you go to the bar, you got all these white people go to the bar, and now they got to tell you about my nigger jokes. More to come of all of that, the racism in the workplace and the liquor in the workplace. That'll be Catherine Massey Book Club tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Reading more important than watching television. Let's see, and then we'll be here, obviously, Saturday, compensatory call-in. We'll catch up on news and observations from over the past week or so on the plantation. 8 p.m. both programs, Friday and Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Give folks about 5 minutes or so if they're spectating or whatever they're doing, maybe, I don't know, watching the basketball tournament and all that is going on. I know that's such a big deal. They got all the gambling and such that they even watch that in a lot of workplaces. I know they've watched that, like had that in the schools. I mean, like for the people that are under 18 schools here in the States for like years, especially if you live in an area where your like college team is advancing and moving on in the term, like, oh man, we have to do geometry later. Like we already got low reading scores, you know, missing 1 or 2 days won't make that big a deal. We got to watch the game. Come on. If you have one of those jobs where they do, you know, watch, they got to have the TV on and do all that, I would not be all up in the game and rooting for your team and paraphernalia, even if it's other white people around you and they, you know, all crazy and, oh, we got to root in Maryland, gonna get it. We're supposed to be here to work, not watch television. Kind of the same logic I stated before. Like you see white people on your job and they are drunk at work, wearing pajamas at work. That does not mean you need to follow their lead. In fact, it doesn't even mean you can do the same thing that they do and get the same result. For sure, if they want to sit around and like they can bring in pom-poms, they can wear all the paraphernalia for their school and whoever else they're rooting for, how much money they bet on the game, all that old nonsense. They even get serious about it. They do those the brackets, you know, where you pick who you think is going to win. I would not participate in any of that. They can do all that. I'm trying to get a promotion. I'm not trying to sit around here and got to spend half the day talking about the team and all that. We said years before, like I said, we had Neutralizing Workplace Racism for years. I suggest the code, any non-white person, and I say especially if you're a black male, no talking sports in the workplace. Like, I wouldn't care if you've been to every Super Bowl and got plaques, you with Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman, and come on. In the workplace, I can't even spell football. I'm just here to work. Reason, justification. I've seen too many examples, experienced it myself, where system of white supremacy racism for non-white people, black people, it's just you are not a thinker. You can't use your brain computer for anything, and the only thing that you think about is entertainment and sports. So as opposed to coming to talk to you about a big corporate merger, a big opportunity for a promotion, a big opportunity for you to lead a project, I just come to talk to you about, boy, did you see that game last night? Ooh-wee, Maryland looked good. Come on. That's what you like. I'm just a little child. I'm just concerned about little childish ball games. No. Like, no, I don't really pay attention to all that. That's the reputation that I would want. Serious, I didn't come to work and talk about everything I watched on TV. I didn't come to work to talk about the Super Bowl and boy, them Eagles and exciting what. None of that. None of that. I don't keep up with the March Madness tournament. No, I don't want to participate in the bracket and pick the teams and win them. And they waste a lot of time with that, man. I'm just telling you, for me, it might have changed or what have you, but this is something that I've seen for you. I don't even watch college basketball. I didn't like, even like when I was most addicted, I didn't like college basketball, so I never did the whole, you got to pick the bracket and blah, blah, blah. Man, they will easy waste a whole day. Go hang out in somebody's office and they print out, the brackets, got it up, and, ooh, what you think? Oh, you think BYU gonna get through there? And, ooh. And like I said, they got all that money and everything, and they put, the pools up, and they put all the money down in there. I would not participate in none of that. And I could see that being something where you get, 5 or 6 people, because sometimes they get the whole building to come and do all that stuff. They wait and see you, especially either you win the pool where you get all the money, or you are hanging out and they allege they got a project due and you missed it and blah, 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 and you over here messing around, watching TV, and your cousins over here slam dunk the ball and all that old nonsense. Nah, man. I'm non-Clemson grad. I ain't got nothing to do with the Tigers. They lost early, too. I'd be a sticker about that. But I don't have nothing to do. Duke Blue Devils. I don't have nothing to do. Maryland, Bama, none of the BYU, Brigham Young didn't even want no black people at the school. I don't have nothing to do with none of that. The only March Madness I'm worrying about, we're going to get these taxes done. I'm going to get this raise. Maybe I get a raise, nice stuff. I can do a little March Madness on my own. Give me a little spring break action. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't have nothing to do with the male or female. I don't care about best to Juju Watkins, but I'm not betting on none of that. None of that. Caitlin Clark, I'm here to work. I'm here to get that promotion, get my performance review, make sure I'm on track to get my raise, my bonus. Thank you. Let's see. Folks who with us, caller at the courthouse in Florida should be with us. I think they were talking about, because they just had the big conference he was telling us about, to make sure they do not do no misgendering when they do the applications and such at the courthouse. I remember that one. See, trying to see if anybody else, they've dealt with this. They figured out any codes to make sure that what did you call me, mister? You don't call me mister. I told you I identify as female and all the rest of it. But yes, he just said they had a big training day. Sounded like it lasted days. Big training session to make sure we don't want to be accused of misgendering at the courthouse. Caller in Florida should be with us.
Yes, sir. May I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Greetings to Gus, the host, the listeners and callers. And another thing to add to that, Gus, is the post office wanted to see if we actually had some spare applications. I'm thinking that may have had something to do with the gender selection issue, but the people at the post office were also speaking about an internet issue as well. But we had, from what I'm being told, had to toss out a lot of those applications. I think they call it the DS-11. Another thing that happened recently was a fire drill. Like the fire alarm went out or went on, whatever. And it was toward the end of the day, and we had to go across the way to the older courthouse, or it's called the tax collector now. It's like a county building. And I think they were still trying to figure out what issue went on with the fire alarm, because the building is so old as it is. And we were pretty much dismissed toward the end of the day, like a little after 4 o'clock, and the court closes at 5. And what I saw a poster in the hallway, and it said lynchings. It said lynchings in Alachua County. And I was looking at it, and I noticed some of the coworkers, they just kept walking past me and everything. And that was one thing I wanted to share. Another incident that occurred was, again, like with the ice cream, you know, non-constructive food products for the so-called Employee Appreciation Day. The top white person was going around with this cooler, and he had a bunch of these ice creams, like ice cream cones or whatever. And he asked me if I wanted one. I said no. I said no. I'm good. I don't do that. Like, you know. He said, well, you know, it's probably for the best. So I just kept going. You know, I got that down, and at the same time, it's been reported to me, a white person who got hired on by knowing a white woman that had all of her friends from the clique brought into the office, so definitely a clique member. This white woman was caught with her head down on the table, taking a so-called break. So I'm saying so-called because it's supposed to be a certain time period in the morning time and in the afternoon where you're taking these 15-minute breaks. So the top white person caught this other white person asleep on the table. So I guess the person that's in charge, from what the white person gave this person, black person, that position, he let him know this person was asleep. He caught this person asleep 2 times. And the white person still had the sense of entitlement and still being defiant. Like, she was upset and mad. And the white guy, unprofessional, doesn't know how to talk to people. Didn't see, now they are in a sexual relationship. He told her, you know, just accept that you did something wrong and don't go over to HR, I guess, all mad and upset. And then the black person actually went up to her saying, well, I'm going to send this email out, and I don't think you're going to like it. So I guess it's kind of accommodating her, glorifying her or whatever. My next one I like to share is a black female was covering for another black female for marriages. And she said a white couple, like a white man, came in there, and during the session, he had tossed, threw and tossed his ID, threw his ID at her. And she was like, oh, no, you're going to have to hand this to me. We're not going to do this. She says his response was, oh, well, that's just the old redneck way of doing things. So I'm looking at her tell this to these 2 white people, and they're not really, like you mentioned, like they're not showing no kind of empathy. They just kind of just listening to what she's saying. So this white couple came in there behaving this way. She was reporting that. And I had one last incident that I like to share. And it was, again, with the passport photos where a young black male, I suspect this is a young black male from the name that I looked up, and I've seen this person before. So they again are, scrutinizing his choice of not smiling, just a blank expression, okay? And they don't do this. They don't scrutinize white customers who come in there. They say, I'm not gonna smirk or smile or anything. I'm just gonna look at the camera, take this picture so I can get my passport. But they were implying that he's going to engage in criminal behavior. The white person said, "Oh well, once he gets his mugshot, he'll wake up," or something like that. And the black person is engaging in this conversation with this racist. I think this person is a racist. And other than that, those are some of the updates. And thanks for allowing me to share.
Get the mug shot. Wow. Well, much obliged, caller at the courthouse in Florida. We said that they had a fire drill. That is wacky. Like, safety first, that definitely right on, but that is unusual. I don't even remember them having too many fire drills at work, but that is, yeah, you need to have fire drills. Let's see. He said they had the poster up for lynchings in Alachua County. Like, that is just wild. Like, I guess it is the courthouse, so I guess they do have the archive records and all that, and that's Florida state history. They probably had some lynchings at the courthouses and such in Florida, so, but just wow, that is, I'd had to take a picture of that as well. Like, what is this up for Black History Month? Or what, do you know? Like, why was that up? Who put that? Is there a reason that they had that poster up?
It may have been for Black History Month, because I've rarely gone into that building very often, and it looks like they plan, I guess, on having it up for a while, because I know they mentioned the Hippodrome in the courthouse being a spot for lynchings, or downtown and places like that. But that's my first time really seeing it, really.
White people are not ignorant about white supremacy racism. I'm sure they know all about the lynchings of Alachua County. Probably got whole books, and, my great-grandfather was out there and told that Leroy about being mouthy. Watch it in Alachua County. Same way the white man, when they were getting rowdy about George Floyd a few years back with the Rona, I said, hey now, it's Polk County. Black light, we don't play around. Polk County. we probably got the same poster for Polk County, like lynchings of Polk County. Let's see. He said the white fella supervisor, that's my error in error. He said the white fella came around, had the cooler for Employee Appreciation Day or week or whatever it is. Said, "Whoa, you got the cooler? Ice cream sandwiches for all. Grab her ice cream sandwich. Grab her ice cream sandwich." Say, I'm going to pass on the ice cream sandwich. Thank you. Said, fella say, it's probably for the best.
He did say that. Yes, sir.
I don't even, even if I didn't know Michael Swango, I'd never heard that. If you could put me right back, old-timey Gus T. Michael who? What? Swang? Okay. Even just that. You're going to come up and offer me something to eat, put in my mouth. Nah, I'm good. Probably for the best. That could totally just be me being ignorant and my dumb mind, but like, what do you mean? It's for the best so that I can have my trim spring figure? Is for the best so that I don't end up with the rat poison? I can't get up. And then he just said last week that they went to the black brother and they said, hey, black brother, we got these gorilla donuts. We got the banana donuts for you. Here, really? You don't want the banana donut? I thought of you. We got the banana. I can't get up. I can't get up. I'm not eating nothing in the workplace. Anybody even came to me and said that. Like, yeah, you're not going to eat one? It's probably for the best. Because if you got something yummy for me to eat, you sure? They sure are tasty. That's more for me then. That's what you say. Probably for the best. Man. I said, hey, don't eat nothing in the workplace, man. Don't eat nothing. And as a matter of fact, if you bring your soda to the workplace, you bring your what? He said he put his water in the refrigerator. And he came and said, hey, they didn't put my water on the floor. Man, you ain't even got to worry about eating nothing. Just protect what you brought to eat and drink to the workplace to make sure that does not get poisoned, put on the floor, spat in, they put super glue in it or whatever else. We'll get to the half-eaten bag of peanut M&Ms and banana donuts later. Let's see. I started the program. Cronyism. White people that are not qualified, what do they call it? Ignoramuses. Can't type, can't swipe, but they got the job. How you get this job? Oh, you know everybody in HR. Oh, that's your grandmother in HR. Oh, you were born into the clique. I see. Maybe I would be okay with that if I had grandma in HR. She could hook me up with a job. I'm her favorite grandson. She could hook me up. Times get always. The grandma got me. Okay, I'm back at the courthouse. Yeah, I'm back. Went around to Vegas and messed around, but I'm gonna, get it together. I'm gonna behave and, appreciate it, grandma. Maybe I'd feel differently about it, but wow, they allow for a lot. What the ignoramuses, white, racist ignoramuses to get jobs where they are not. He said that the fella, unprofessional, doesn't know how to talk to people. How did you get this job? Let's see. You see the result of that. Now, if I remember correctly, the fella that's unprofessional and doesn't know how to talk to people, I think he works in like accounting, billing services. He's not custodial staff. He is not the person who just buffs the floors. Now you see the result of this. He said, now you go around. Wait a minute. Is Susie, is she drooling on the desk? Whoa, wait a minute. Hey, how you sleep at the courthouse, man? You don't know that. And then he said, this the second time she been drooling on the desk. Come on. We gave a long list at the beginning of the program. I did. I said, hey, man, you see white people on the job, they come in their footies, drunk, drinking. They got open bottle of Mad Dog 2020. You don't do all that. You see white people sleep. He even said that they have designated break times where I guess maybe you can take a nap. Like, what? Even with that, you still are nodding off at your desk at the courthouse? Come on, man. Come on. And now, pause. This is the same place. A black female worked there for 20 years. Can't get a promotion. She drooling at the... That's what she's been doing for 2 decades. That's why she can't. That's the reason. You straighten up and fly right, man. You get your promotion too, Lakeisha. You back here snoozing. That's why you've been wasting time for 20 years. That's why she can't get a promotion. Even the response to that, like, we might have to do something about you sleeping at the desk here. Repeatedly. Like you're habitual. You got narcolepsy? Do you need to, what's going on here? Like, what? You gonna go, what? How you gonna tell him? If it had been our caller snoozing. Some of the other folks in the segregated section, snoozing. And even, he said, that was the one he said, my white brother, unprofessional, doesn't know how to talk to me. Hey, you know, just admit you were wrong. Which is the adult thing to do. You're right. I shouldn't be sleeping on the job. I'm gonna get me some coffee, stop by Starbucks, be ready to roll. That would be that's one where he was being a little bit logical, like, right, hey, just straighten up and fly right, man. Straight up. I'm unprofessional and don't know how to talk to people, and I'm still hanging out, so they ain't gonna come on you too bad. Just, you know. Come on. Let's see. He said the black man back at the segregated section said black female up at the front desk, marriage. White couple comes in, and they sling the ID down on the white fella. Nigga woman here. She says, whoa. We're not gonna do that, sir. You have to hand that to me. We're gonna have to be courteous about all this. Black self-respect, dare I say. Bravo. Like, you know, just come in here and just, you know, treat me, talk to me, any old, throw stuff on the hey, you see that poster over there? Lynchings and Alachua County. This ain't that time. Act right. She could have pressed it. That's what I was thinking. She could have pressed the panic button. Like, hey. Wrong with you, man? You don't come in here and threaten me. In fact, I thought too, is that one, do you all have the right to not serve? If someone comes in there and they're being discourteous like that, can you say, oh, whoa, sir, no, sir, I'm not going to serve you today. You can't just come in here and behave any old kind of way. No, thank you, sir, not today. Can you all refuse service if they're being, you know, discourteous like that?
Yes, sir. We sure can.
I would have had to think about that. Like, you don't just come in here, you know, hey, we're not going to do that one. Everybody, this is supposed to be a brief interaction, and you're coming in for a service. You better behave. I know it's the segregated section, but you better behave. Or maybe that part is not. I guess she might not have been. But either way, you're going to behave. Black self-respect. I love it. White people come in there and get mad because niggers is taking over and ooh. Well, learn how to contain yourself. I get upset about having to deal with race soldiers all the time. Contain yourself. Behave. Black self-respect. I love. And she could have hit the panic button for real. Like, man, I felt he threw a projectile at me. I felt threatened and unsafe. Panic button. And then we got the other way. Black fella comes in for the passport photo and all that. And, he's going to get his mug shot. Then what? And they do this sort of thing all the time. Remember, he said before, there's a black person. I think it's like they'll have black children come in. Oh, my goodness, he looks like a rapist. Oh, my God, he looks like a criminal. Oh, you want? What? I'm just trying to get my passport photo, man. Like, what? Well, I'm not a rapist. I'm not a looter. I do not deserve to be lynched in Alachua County. I'm just trying to get a passport photo. No, I don't want to smile. It's been a rough day, man. Just trying to get through the courthouse. Dang. Look at you, you little rapist. Are you sure? Come on, man. Come on. And like I said, I've heard this one like repeatedly up there, him, you know, telling us about his experience doing the photos. And he said they don't do this. Apparently you can be a white person and I don't feel like cheesing for my passport photo. I just, you know, straight face. Let's do it. And then, come on, Thad. You look like a little rapist. You look like Jeffrey Epstein. Come on now. They don't do that. Come on. Much obliged. I don't even know what that means. He gets that mugshot. That'll wake it. What? What? Metaphor too. Like, was I asleep? The white chick back there is asleep. I'm not. I'm trying to get out of the country, man. Can I get my photo? Are we done? No. Oh. Woo. The courthouse is amazing. Even the lynching poster. And then again, white people not ignorant. about racism. Who put that poster up, I wonder? Niggers went and took over the courthouse over there? Who keeps the records, I bet, on the lynchings of Alachua County? Much obliged, caller at the courthouse. Let's see. It's previously mentioned non-Clemson dad, Double O Dimples, Mama C with us as well. You'll have commentary to share. Proceed.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's having a wonderful week. I'll comment on one of the stories I did hear earlier in the broadcast. I've not had an issue with misgendering people, but sometimes I say the incorrect pronoun, even with non-LGBTQ people. Once while talking with a friend in front of a dance studio, a homeless man approached, clearly intending to ask for money. I said, "Hello, what can I do for you, sir?" He responded, "Do I look like a sir to you?" I apologized and said, "What can I do for you, ma'am?" He asked for it. I said no, and she walked away. Firstly, I call people what they want to be called. And in that particular situation, I already knew what he intended to do, and he spent so much time being offended or knowing that I was going to say no, that he used his response about the pronoun to be disingenuous, or what's the word, indignant about the fact that I was going to say no, but he filtered it through through the pronoun game. All right, on to some current things. The department administrator that just recently fired my director has now gotten a new job as a city administrator, which he will start in May. So, fired the director, and now he's on his way out. Let's see. The job I applied for with the local transit provider has now relisted the same job for a fifth time under a new name. The black board member asked him about the requirement that a potential applicant must come from another transit agency. The department director said that they're having a hard time recruiting because most people who do transit planning go to the transit consultancies because there's more money in the private sector than the public sector. For that reason, they're having a hard time recruiting for the position. But I'm still set to learn, but I'm lucky enough to still be set to learn how to drive a bus through the local transit provider, which I hopefully will start doing in the next weeks. I texted the black male board member to thank him for asking the question. After the meeting, he says it seems like they're trying to hire a consultant more so than filling the position. Currently, the transit agency has all the transit planning done by private consultants, and none of that is done in-house. Now, I don't have much experience in transit planning, though I have completed the transit network planning course that was administered by the foremost bus network authority in the world back in April 2024. Usually such a course costs thousands of dollars. The course was being free in Los Angeles, and all I had to do was get there, which my employer paid for. Even though I don't do direct transit planning, I do keep up with the trends and study things outside of my immediate job that would have definitely allowed me to easily do the job. One of the things in my job that I do is I constantly request my employer buy me books, which I read and mark up with Post-it notes. And several of the books on my desk are about transit planning. I have plenty of books on my desk about housing and zoning and various materials and aspects of urban planning. So, even though I didn't get the job that I applied for, I still do my best to study a whole bunch of different types of materials so that when I'm, able to finally make that move, that I'm as prepared as possible to do whatever job I try to do. And of course, my advice to anyone is that, whenever you apply for a new job or try to do anything, try to be as prepared to do that job as possible. You might not be able to do everything, but learn as much as you can so that when you get the job, you're not starting from, less than nothing. And with that, I'll mute my line.
Great suggestion. Did you just get your CDL? Or am I making that up?
I got my CDL permit. I had to get the permit before I could touch a bus.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, got his CDL and everything. He said he's going to do some driving, maybe training on all that. Bravo. Non-Clemson Dad, see, didn't say nothing about I'd been killing them on the office pool because I didn't go to Clemson, so I knew the Tigers was going to be lame and faulty. And bigger things, promotions, interviews, raise, CDL, training, going to drive the bus, literally. Valedictorian, see? And accused misgenderer, see there? Even though he didn't give us one from the workplace, man, they love to hammer us in the workplace. Oh, my God, you didn't call me by the correct pronoun and all the rest of it. Call people what they want to be called. Let's see. He said that now they're posting the job that he's been telling us about over the course of a few weeks now, posting it for the 5th time, where he couldn't even get an interview. Posting it for the 5th time as they lament. So difficult. Private sector is poaching all of our talent. Can't get anybody. Want people that have some sort of public transportation experience. Thus, non-Clemson dad, CDL, going to drive the bus. Have that too. This is exactly, since this broadcast today, and throughout the years, all that talk about cronyism, nepotism. Matter of fact, Abraham Bolden, going into the Secret Service, he told President Kennedy that he was hesitant about applying to Secret Service because he didn't have all the prerequisites. I think it was some course or what have you that he hadn't completed. I said, oh man, those prerequisites, they can be waived. We said, see, if you're white, hey, maybe I know how to type. Maybe I don't. Non-Clemson dad was white. Maybe it would matter that, he doesn't have this transportation experience. Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe he would at least get an interview. That's what I'm saying. All that cronyism, and where you have black people that are super qualified and looking to do a great job, and meanwhile you got these old shiftless, lame racists, and oh yeah, come on in. Can't even spell shiftless, but you can at least get an interview. Anyway, do your best. That's something that I also am a huge advocate of for victims of white supremacy, non-white people. Do your best. Really make every effort, every job situation, this even for the classroom. Do your best. We are in a system of white supremacy, racism. Individuals classified as white, they are going to do their best to see that you fail, frequently sabotaging you directly. Clemson dad told us he was trying to do work at the job and didn't find out they weren't even updating his computer. This has been going on for years. He was like, dang, is that why I've been having all these computer crashes, wasting all that time, have to go back and restart whole projects? I could be home with 00 dimples, taking care of my attempted wife, trying to get the CDL. Because they're not updating my computer deliberately. That sort of thing. You expect the sabotage and all of that. That is a part of the system of white supremacy racism. But even still, do your best. That's one thing I can say. Dr. Maya Angelou, the big takeaway that I had from her book, other than Mad Dog 2020 and black people not being serious, there were so many workplace situations where she talked about getting hired for jobs that she hadn't done before, and so she didn't have direct expertise. She hadn't went to school or learned how to do this, like going to be a journalist overseas and all these different types of, really specific office jobs. And she talked about the same thing. All right, I'm going to get this job. It's Thursday. I'm starting on Monday. I'm trying to learn everything that I can. I'm going to get all the books, talk to people who have done this job, do all the research so that I can know as much as I possibly can, do my best when I get there, and continuing with this learning, studying, so that I don't just have this job in a shiftless manner like I'm one of these crony beneficiary race soldiers. I'm going to see if I can do my best at this job, even in a system of white supremacy racism. I think that is the exact way we should operate in figuring out counter-racist code while we're doing all of this. difficult work for sure, but that is the challenge I submit. And even, I had not even heard of, he said he requests the supervisor, folks on his job, to get him books. Wow, that is amazing. But now that after hearing it, like, I guess that's not that crazy a request. Like, I mean, he didn't say he was asking them to get him, like, Call of Duty books or, Harry Potter books. He's asking for books about the job, transportation. Like, hey, that's what we do. Why would they be opposed to giving you books about the job so that you can do a better job with planning and making our little neck of South Carolina the best it can be? What's the problem? Yeah, get some books. Whoopee. Amazing. Maybe see if you can do that on your job too. Get you new books that will help you do your job even better. And then apparently old nerdy valedictorian actually read the books. Wacky. Highlighted them even, he said. Learn, learn, and learn. Mr. Fuller might even co-sign on that. Sounds like still learning. And then, he said he's still going out. Hasn't been able to do the bus route and all that, but then maybe that'll fulfill the transportation component of it. Maybe by the time they post this job listing 7 or 8 times, you'll have the bus driving experience. We'll be like, hey, public transportation, I got it all. At least I can get an interview, right? We're gonna take it down again. we're gonna change the wording again. Yeah. Expect all of that as well. Still do your best. Woo, amazing. Bravo, let us know how driving the bus goes. Non-Clemson dad. Let's see. Other folks, if they have commentary to share, 605-313-5164, the code 564943 #, press star 61. If you would like to participate, the email untiljustice@gmail.com. untiljustice@gmail.com. Let us know have you been accused of misgendering in the workplace, and or have you figured out a code? If that has not been a problem, if you figured out like a foolproof method, certainly call people what they want to be called. That can take you a long way with this problem. Now, depending on the environment, and I suspect this might be one, if you are in a region or if you're in a workplace where there are a lot of people who, there's some difficulty or some confusion about how they classify and they have specific requests for pronouns and things, it might be a situation where you discontinue sir, ma'am, anything like that completely, right? And I think even our caller at the courthouse, he had said, that yes, thank you, certainly, have a nice day. We'll see. There is no gender mentioned. Everything's just very generic, and hey, no accusations can be made. Professional, courteous. And some of that, I don't know, might have been covered in the training that they had recently, but it seems like he had talked to us about that sort of precision wording prior. Very important. Like I said, you might have to make an assessment if you note, it's enough people here that, they are not just the normal sir, ma'am. It's going to cause conflict and I might be accused of something. Hey, I don't even do sir, ma'am anymore. You can just call people by their name as opposed to sir and ma'am. Morning, Ted. Morning, Helen. Just name or morning, afternoon. Have a great day. Yes. No. And just saying less. And again, just being very precise with what you say. But I could easily see, and I mean, the report that I had today, Nurse Malele, this was with a child rapist, right? This was not like this was a regular white person in a workplace. This is a convicted child rapist who said, oh my God, you called me a sir and I'm a female. And this was even, it would sound like in a medical situation where they were having to go with a catheter. And so anatomically speaking, we got a male, so I'm looking, got to do penis, sir. Whoa, you don't call me sir. Like, but I got your penis is like, woo. And then she even got into the religious component of it, which now that's interesting too. I don't know. I mean, she's in a different part of the world. I'm not even sure if I would recommend bringing up, your religious practices that, you don't recognize this. I mean, certainly practice your religion, but I'm not sure if depending on the type of job, if that is going to make much of a difference. Like, I don't think your religion per se, that might not protect you from a charge of misgendering, or I don't know. That's wow. That adds a whole nother layer to it. In fact, like, man, I call people what they want to be called. Certainly practice your religion. If your religion says, nope, I can't do that, practice your religion. I would be very curious to know how all of that, is resolved. Because, I mean, wow. I guess I would not be surprised, at least for Nurse Malele, because she's a black female, system of white supremacy racism, even with a white convicted child rapist, you're going to be at fault. Even though he called you a nigger and all this, you shouldn't have misgendered that convicted white child racist, who called you a nigger. Like, that's about what I would expect it to be. Woo, man, she sounded like she was trying to be professional too. Like, man, just all of it. Then that one kind of gave me a lot to process. Other folks hopefully won't be in such a difficult circumstance where you're having to do all this with a child rapist. But, woo, generally speaking, call people what they want to be called. It might get to a point where we have to totally retire saying sir, ma'am, which I'm kind of opposed to because, hey, I'm with Fuller. Like, hey, that is a racist man and a racist woman. They are big time about promoting contempt for gender in a variety of ways. And males, you do have males. There is such a thing. You do have females. Even in the plant world, you have males and females. I do believe that exists, even biologically speaking. Yes, I do. It seems that they are opposed to that. But I mean, wow, for the workplace, might require a little bit of thought, like I said, especially depending on what type of job, what sector, population in your specific workplace. We'll check and see if other folks, anything else, folks, they need to share what happened this week. Let's see. Making sure we didn't miss any of our emails. Again, we should be here Saturday, or before I got confused, we should be here before that, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Abraham Bolden, lots on workplace racism. We got racist jokes, drinking in the workplace, false accusations, workplace safety. I mean, I was astounded. Lots of workplace racism in Abraham Bolden's memoir of his time at the Secret Service. John F. Kennedy assassination, same time tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And then Saturday, compensatory call-in. We'll catch up on what's transpired the past 7 days on the plantation. Probably be some workplace racism there, too, because there's so much with the Trump and Elon Musk with the firings and impact on government workers and such across the land, even beyond, but certainly across the continent. But that's Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We will chat it up, compensatory call-in. Let's see. Unless folks, any other commentary suggestions that they have to offer for the workplace. Make sure I didn't miss any emails or callers. Let's see. Looks like I did not miss out on anyone, I don't think. Grand. Folks can let us know. I asked about it last week, but folks can let us know. Have you observed that same pattern where we get really, and we being people classified as black victims of white supremacy, really emotionally upset, outraged over non-white people who are discourteous, unprofessional to us in the workplace, more so than our responses to racists and their mistreatment in the workplace? Have you all seen that pattern? Am I not saying things correctly? You can let me know and suggestions on how to deal with that. Again, No mistreatment in the workplace. We are big time, this whole broadcast, Neutralizing Workplace Racism, about minimizing all forms of mistreatment in the workplace. And as I said, I also think a big part of minimizing or changing some of these patterns, just not having an expectation that, as black people in the workplace, that they're going to love me and bring me non-contaminated snacks to eat while we're here and bring me pictures of their children and well wishes for me. That, no reason to think that's going to be the case. If it does turn out to be so, pleasant surprise. But we cannot, not at this late date, be coming into a job thinking, oh man, it's black people here, this is going to be great, we're going to be friends, we'll look out for each other. And wrong. Even if you work with all black people, so what? Professional, same code. These are not your friends, these are people that you work with. United, independent, all the time in the workplace. Anyhoodles, much obliged for folks tuning in, hopefully worthy of your time and energy for the workplace and beyond. Sobriety would be best. Teetotaler, that is the word for the workplace. You do not want to be, even if you have to go to happy hour, because I've been where sometimes they'll have happy hour at a bar and you're outnumbered and so you got to go and all that. You can get a water. Teetotaler, you do not want the reputation as the person who is out drinking, boozing it up with the coworkers, watching the NCAA tournament or anything else. Like, no way, I'm professional. That's not the image, lame excuse that I want to give race soldiers when it's time for me to get an interview or a raise. Well, you had that picture of Budweiser at the tournament that time. Nah. Creator, remind us not to waste our limited time and energy. Help us maximize our time and energy to replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Minimize contact, minimize conflict. Stop name calling black people. Stop being discourteous to black people. Stop gossiping. Stop producing throwaway offspring. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cows signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed.
I'm a victim, brother.
Problem. You're a victim.
I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my condition. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.